All right. Well, good evening, ladies. Good evening. And to all of our viewers out there, I want to welcome you to Marriage Monday. Tonight, we're doing something special. We're doing something different. We are doing women's only edition. Last week, you saw Dr. Darren on with three of his brothers. And so we are joining you today. Women's edition. I am Lady Chalon, and I am the co-host with my husband, Dr. Darren. And tonight I will serve as your host. Thank you again so much for joining me. And look, I got a wonderful panel for us tonight. Three amazing women, and I'm going to ask them in a few minutes to introduce themselves, and so that you can know who we are having this dialogue and this conversation with. Um, just a little background. We started this podcast because we were so tired of hearing the numbers of couples who were throwing in the towel and giving up on their marriage. And so we decided to have Marriage Monday so that we can have real conversations that would impact married couples and give them the tools that they need to work through their problems and to start enjoying marriage, even through the difficult times, and to get back to the place where it all started. So with that, ladies, again, welcome to Marriage Monday, and I'm going to ask you to just introduce yourself. Just give us your name, what you do as your professional occupation, the number of years you've been married, and just a little brief love story, how you met your husband, whatever you want to share with us. So I'm going to ask Melissa to go ahead and get started.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Melissa Chin, and I am a piano and voice teacher. I have been married for 8 years, and it's a funny story how I met my husband. I hired him because I needed a musician, so he used to sing a lot. And he loves that story, actually, because I never end up paying him because we started dating. And long story short, but yeah, so we met through music, and by the time we were married, we've been doing ministry since then. With being pastor, he's a pastor of a church.
Amen. All right, that's awesome. 8 years, and Melissa is definitely a songbird. She has a beautiful voice, a beautiful ministry of music, and so yeah, look out for her. She's gonna come. She's gonna take the industry by storm one day.
I receive it.
Amen. Or Dunham. Or
Hi, I'm Aura.
There you go.
Can you hear?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, I'm Aura Dunham. I work for the federal government. I've been married 16 years to my wonderful husband, Cedric Adrell Dunham. We met in college in a biology class, to be exact.
Wow.
When he walked in the classroom, the Holy Spirit told me, "That's your husband." And I'm looking around trying to find out who's talking to me, and there was no one there. And I looked at him, I'm like, and I started having a conversation with God in my head. And I was like, no, that's not my husband. I don't know him. And we were literally conversating. And then he sat down behind me, tapped me on my shoulder, and he asked me what was I presenting on, because we had to do a presentation that day. And I was presenting on prostate cancer. And I turned around and I told him something that may save your life one day. And he asked me I asked him what he was presenting on. And he explained that he was presenting on marine biology, because he wanted to be a marine biologist. And one thing led to another. We became very close friends. And 7 years later, we started dating, and we ended up getting married.
Wow. Awesome.
That's our love story.
Awesome. Barbara Payne.
Good evening, ladies.
Good
and
evening.
Mrs. Chen, I've heard your praise and worship listening with my husband, so I can attest to those pipes.
But, thank you.
You're welcome. I'm Barbara Payne, and I'm a chemical engineer. The field that I am in is a water consultant, so we provide consultative services to food and beverage clients like Shady Brook Farms, for example, and to the White House, to power plants, just to make sure that they can maintain their assets and productivity the most efficient way possible. I met my husband in physics class freshman year.
Wow.
And yes, we became like such great friends throughout college. We didn't date until after college, actually.
Wow.
And he would do stuff like call my mom during summer breaks and check on her. He was getting her ready,
Yeah.
butter her up, And, my family just fell in love with him. And so we got married 17 years ago. My mom said, that's going to be your husband. I said, no, it's not. Because I think I was mad at him for one reason or another at the time. And, they say mamas know best. And, the rest is history. We have 3 beautiful children and, just making our way through this life together as best as we can. And it's just been really, really beautiful. And if I can share just one thing real quick, I don't want to take too much time, just to show the impact that he has and the kind of individual he is. My aunt, our first year of marriage, my uncle called me and said, you guys got to get back. We were on our anniversary, actually. And he said, you guys got to get back. Your aunt, she's going down. She had breast cancer. She had this unique form of breast cancer. She did well with it for a while. And then when it came back, it just did its own thing and got in the bones and everywhere. So we walk in the door and, I'm giving hugs and, kisses. And, of course, I'm like all trying to keep myself together because I don't want to show her how, messed up I am on the inside. Chris walks in the door. She sits up. She says, Christopher, you came. That was the only words that she said that whole day. And then she passed like 2 days later. So just to show, the kind of impact that he has. He's just a genuine good man.
Yeah.
So that's our little fun love story.
Yay. Awesome. Well, ladies, we are going to go ahead and get into the meat of why we're joining together here on this podcast. And so I want to just kind of talk for a few minutes about what's your secret. What's your secret? So Pastor Darren, Dr. Darren and I have been married for, it'll be 24 years in September. And we dated almost 9 years before we even got married. So we have been together for an extremely long time, almost the whole amount of time that I've been in Maryland. And we met in church. And so we know that just looking at marriage, there has to be something that keeps you there for 24 years. And I just look at our relationship and I remember, growing up, my father and my mother, they had their issues. There was a lot of trust issues there. And so one of the things that I told him was that all I have is all you have trust. That's the most important thing for me. I need to be able to trust you and not have to wonder about things. And so let's talk about that. What's your secret to staying married? Like, what's your secret sauce? Everybody, Pastor Trev, he is, he likes to cook. And so he's always, throwing stuff together, spices and doing different things with his smoked meats. And so what's your secret sauce to marriage? And we're not going to go around. So just jump in if you have something to say. I think for us, ours has been that one thing. And he has really worked hard to maintain that trust and not to do anything that will make me question whether I trust him or not. And so I think being open and honest about your expectations, my expectations has been one of the things that has kept us together for so long. So let's talk about that. What you think? What's your secret sauce? How can you still be here after 8 years? We have people 16 years. How do you keep it going?
I'll jump in. Speaking of special sauce, he is actually smoking some chicken thighs right now and made a really good jerk sauce. So when this is over, but for us, I would say it's apologizing quickly. Wow. And he has set the tone for that because if I'm completely honest, hopefully he's not watching, let my guard down. I'm so prideful. And it's very hard to apologize when I'm wrong. But since the beginning of our marriage, he kind of set that example and he's made it easier for me. So like, you know, even if it's over the pettiest thing, he's always quick to be like, listen, I was wrong and I'm sorry. And that was something I've never seen growing up. You know, I grew up in a divorced family, so I actually didn't even see any successful marriages as a child. So when we got married, people were already like,
Wow.
come to the wedding, but you know, we already know how
Right.
this one ended. So when I saw how quick he was to apologize, at first it challenged me and I was like, wow, but I couldn't do it. You know, then over the few years, I've been like, you know what, this is so humbling, and it really helps us to not hold grudges and to just carry that weight of unforgiveness. And I know that it's authentic. I think that really is our secret sauce.
Awesome. That's awesome. But that's a good point you bring up when you're talking about forgiving quickly and apologizing quickly, because a lot of times when we look at marriages, you know, so many times we have counsel couples, and that's one of the biggest things that they have the most difficulty doing is to just move on. You know, they want to, you know, we have people who want to hold grudges and they want to bring it up a month later, you know, y'all into something totally different. But then we come back to that same issue when if you would have just dealt with it then, been open and honest and quickly apologized, you know, acknowledging your part in it, then, you know, you wouldn't have a lot of times, a lot of the stuff that they deal with, they wouldn't have to.
Right. It festers and it grows, and then you're
Exactly.
reacting out of proportion of what it was.
Yes, yes. Barb,
I would say, yes, I would say for us, it's a couple of things: communication and respect. You know, and one of the big things that, I mean, there's a lot of big things, but one of the major things I would say after having kids, I really, really struggled with who I was, because my body made these transformations that I was like so not used to. You know, I was very athletic, and, you know, before kids and then having kids, and things shift around and they change. And so, you know, you kind of, and I was nursing. And so you start to lose some of who you are because you're giving, you know, all of it to the baby, to the family. And we had to have some serious conversations during that time where, you know, he was lifting me up. You know, I struggled with some insecurities also because of the transition. So I'm like, still want to find me beautiful and sexy, and, you know, want to like jump on me on the bed, you know, for example. You know, so I struggled with that, and I created things in my mind that were not even on his register. And so we had to come to the table and, you know, get honest about what we were feeling. And I think that set the tone for us. And the fact that we had a friendship beforehand, you know, for everything else that, you know, we would have to work through in the marriage. And we genuinely respect one another and desire the best for one another. And I think that is, you know, key as well. So just being vulnerable enough to be open with the one person that sees just about every part of you outside of God has been really, really important for us.
Yeah, and you know, communication is one of those things, one of the top reasons that marriages end in divorce, because people are not open to being vulnerable, opening themselves up because of past hurts. You know, people are bringing hurts from past relationships into their current relationship. And so if you can't get over that, then, and be open and honest with your spouse, then it's, you know, communication. That comes up almost every week in our dialogue, because that is one of the biggest areas that couples find difficult in marriage, to be open and honest, and, you know, opening yourself up. Yeah, definitely.
And sorry to jump back in, but if you think about it, I think communication is hard because we have a hard time communicating with ourselves, and you know, the way we speak with, you know, to ourselves, and that creates the trust that we have even within. So, you know, you really have to do some deep self-work to have a successful marriage, so that you can break down, you know, some of those internal barriers and leave yourself open for your spouse.
Definitely. That was good. So let's go ahead.
Back on that.
Yes, ma'am.
One of the things that Cedric and I do, we never go to bed angry with each other. So just like Barb said, the communication piece, We always make sure if someone's feeling is hurt, we don't hold things in and let it build up and we become each other. If he hurts my feelings, I let him know right then and there, babe, I did not like what you said, nor how you said it. And the same for him. And we try to make sure if we do something like that, we want to clear the air before we go to bed, because we realize if we go to bed angry, we'll wake up angry and we'll just let things fester, and we are becoming at each other in a unloving way. So we try to make sure we communicate about whatever it is whenever it happens.
That's right. Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Can I add one more thing to that?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine.
One of the things I forgot, and Aura just reminded me, is the other thing is we try not to have the discussions, over arguments in the room. So one of the things that my aunt told me when we first got married, the same one that passed away, is if y'all have a disagreement and it gets that intense, take it to neutral ground. So whether you gotta go outside, go to a park, definitely outside of your bedroom, so that you don't bring that energy or keep that energy in there. That's supposed to be your safe haven, your sanctuary. So I just wanted to add that also.
That's good. That's good. Yeah. So one of those things, to all those married women out there watching us, you have to come up with your secret sauce. You got to keep it hot, got to keep it spicy. You got to keep those lines of communication open, because that at the end of the day is where it all lands. So let's talk about how successful we have been as wives, meeting your husband's expectations. Do we even know what their expectations are? Because some people don't know. We get emails saying, we might get an email from a husband, pastor get it, that he's not, his expectations aren't being met. So how do we know that we are actually meeting our husband's expectations? And for us, of course, that thing is communication. You have to be open and honest about your expectations. And like I said, I was open and honest about it from the get-go. There are a few things that will just end it for me right there, and breaking my trust, that's it. Like once that happens, I'm done. Like it can't be, I'm not going to say it can't, because with God, all things are possible, but that's one of those things. It's going to be hard to gain my trust again. So just being open and honest about what the expectations are on both ends, I think that's so important. What do you guys think?
I'll say, I feel like because we are always in so many transitions, we've moved so many times, and just with kids and different school setups, I think we always have to have like a family meeting to figure out what it is. We actually have in our schedule like family meeting just to kind of check in. I remember when we first were going through premarital, our pastor said, always stay plugged in. Just to know what he's thinking. I feel like my husband is very hard to read, and I literally have to ask him very specific questions, because when we first got married, we had no clue what each other's expectations were, and we were missing each other. Wow. I thought that he wanted like a clean house, wanted me to cook every day. I'm over here exhausted. I'm like, I'm doing this. What you want? He like, I just want you to be nice to me. I'm like, oh, that's it? That's easy. So I know my husband, he loves verbal affirmation. And so
most men do.
I don't need it necessarily. I don't mind it. I love it, but I don't need it. And I had to understand I'm not him and he's not me. And if he says he needs it, I need to, like you were saying, Barbara, respect that. And not just be like, well, I don't need it, so you don't need it. And I think at one point I was like, I don't get why you really need me to always verbally affirm. But I noticed as soon as I was meeting that expectation, a lot of other things were falling in line. I learned, because I feel like I was a kid when I got married. I mean, it wasn't that long, but I was 23 and I'm 31 now. But I had just graduated from college. Just as soon as I met him, we got married. Like, so you guys knew each other for a long time. You guys said y'all were friends first, and then y'all dated for 7 years. I met Trevor, and similar, I knew he was going to be my husband. I actually saw us doing the electric slide. I was like, we're going to do this, and 8 months later, he proposed. And then like 7 months later after that, we were married. So we're just learning how to adult and, still finding ourselves. So the expectations always change, but the one consistent thing was the verbal affirmation. And I would say I'm getting better and better with each year with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
He probably give me a B+.
Yeah. I mean, it's always evolving,
Yeah.
The expectations change and evolve as well. So,
Right.
yeah, that's good, though. That's good.
I would say for me, I told Cedric from day one, I didn't want a weak man because I know a weak man will fall for anything.
Mm-hmm.
A weak man will be the one to want to put his hands on you. And that's one thing that my father never did to me. I was a spoiled child and I was a daddy's girl. So I told him, I don't want a man that's weak and put his hands on me because then I would have to step outside of myself. So that's one thing he has never done.
Mm-hmm.
And he's always the one that he has to be the one who needs the verbal, I would say, or can you do this or do that? I have to reassure him. I'm the one that, he doesn't really want to talk to me about things. So I have to push him, Cedric, talk to me, because I want communication.
Mm-hmm.
And he can sometimes shut down. And when he shuts down, that causes problems for me because I'm like, okay, did I do something wrong? Right. And I have to continue to press him to begin to communicate with me. And once he does, I'm fine. For him, only thing he really wants me to do is to stay healthy. With him being an athlete, he was like, or my only thing is I want you to be slim. I want you to be trim and stay healthy because if you're healthy, you'll live long. With him having all the different sicknesses that he have from being in the military. His only thing is, again, I need you to stay healthy because we can't both be in the house sick.
Right.
So that's about it.
Okay. Awesome. Very good.
For Chris, in terms of ensuring that I maintain his expectations, it keeps going back down to that communication piece. So like Melissa, a couple of times a quarter, I do a check-in. I do the check-in more than Chris does because I'm always talking about my feelings. I've done a lot of like self-development books over the last couple of years. And so it's opened me to, this new door of, like I said before, vulnerability. So I'm always talking about how I'm feeling. So I do check-ins like, hey, we still good? Is this still what you need? Do I need to do more of this? X, Y, Z. And also, this is what I'm feeling in the moment. This is what I need, et cetera. And make sure that we're on that, same page. Because I think sometimes, our expectations, we think their expectations are one thing, but they're really something completely different. Just like you said, the positive affirmations, being nice to me as opposed to cleaning the house. I think even over time, you can find yourself slipping back into some of those old habits.
Definitely.
And so doing that check-in, on that's some periodicity will help you to reset, or right set, where the path that you're going to. So
that's true.
That check-in is key.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. That's because sometimes you kind of lose sight of what those expectations are. And you might be feeling like, oh yeah, I got this. I'm meeting it all. But somewhere down the line, somebody's feeling something and you're not communicating about it. So then that's going to end up causing an issue. And then, we're back to, like you said, some people shut down because I know early in our marriage, Dr. Darren was one of those people. He would, if there was an issue, because like you said, I don't think that we went into the marriage clearly understanding what our expectations of each other were. We did premarital counseling, but it wasn't, I would say, if I had had the type of counseling that we provide now to couples, then I think we would have started off much better. But like he used to be that person. He would leave, want to go hang out with his mother. He was not the communicator. I wanted to talk about it right then and be done. Like, let's deal with it now. Not him. He wanted it to last. He would not talk for a week. And I'd just be like, okay, when you're ready. So yeah, clearly communicating those expectations. And it's also key for you to communicate, like Barb said, what your expectations are too, because they can't meet your expectations if they don't know. If they don't know. So yeah, one of the things, and that kind of goes into the next question that we're going to talk about, and that is, what are those expectations um, in the bedroom? Because again, one of the biggest things for marriages ending in divorce are communication, finances, and sex. One of the things, and people are kind of, people have that taboo. They feel like that is a taboo topic, but it needs to be discussed. So what is something that you wish your husband knew, um, if there were concerns or anything in the bedroom? One of the things that I had to, and as you get older, of course, your body changes, and your needs change. And so one of the things is that, sometimes, depending on who has the higher sex drive, there has to be a conversation like, yeah, you might want it 7 days a week, but I can't do that. So we had to come up and we had to talk about that and decide what's going to work for both of us. If we can do 3 or 4 days, hey, you got 4, maybe 5, then you're doing good. But one of the things, and so that's one of the things we have to have that conversation, quite frequently, because we have to make sure that everybody's needs are met. But that's one of the things that we need to be open and honest about. Again, going back to communication. So what about that? How do you guys deal with um if there is an issue in the bedroom, if your needs aren't being met, or if he comes to you and says, hey, this not getting it, how do you deal with that? And what do what does that conversation look like?
I'll definitely say, like, again, communication. My husband was delayed or late in telling me what he was thinking. And so I think for a while he was carrying some like resentment. And I would say that he had the higher sex drive, and I was pregnant with my son at my daughter's first birthday party. So they are like very close, and it does a lot to you, not just like exhaustion wise, but hormonally, everything. And so I never actually communicated like, listen, that drive is in the basement. It's a low right now. And he like, well, it's been 6 weeks, you just then you will have another baby after that. And he never verbalized it until my kids were 2 and 3 or something like that. And I was like, wait a minute, like, oh, you was mad. Oh, I didn't know that, So I just wish that he knew that for me, if you just tell me, it works. So he knows now. Like, it was the other day, he was like, it's been too long. I was like, all right, well, I'll put the kids to bed and let's go do it. It's not always going to be, whatever. Just tell me, because I'm not always thinking about that. I've got a lot going on. But I also wish, especially because we got married pretty young, I wish he knew, we probably both knew that it's not a TV show, It's not always. Sometimes you literally have to schedule that joint. Like, you have to pencil it in, and it doesn't have to take away from the romance of it.
Right.
And it might help in busy schedules, being that he's a pastor, and then I've got virtual lessons, and I've got homeschooling and all. Like, we want the pencil to join in. I mean, unless we go away, I don't know how we can be. What's the word? Spontaneous. There it is. Don't even know the word no more. That's how So I think that's one thing. And then the other thing that popped in my mind is I wish that we both knew that in the beginning of our marriage, the patterns that we established would kind of carry with us.
Wow. Yeah.
And I remember, and you would think it was so long ago, but some of those things kind of become ingrained. So now I'm doing the work of kind of being more flexible in my mind. Because like I said, he taught me how to be quick to forgive. I remember things in the past to be like, nope, because you said, I wrote it down in my journals. I remember what you said. But I changed my mind. Like that's so taking those things and freeing myself, being more open to a non-traditional, like, it don't always got to be this romantic way. And I need the romance personally to get there, because I feel like I need the romance, but being open to say, like, sometimes it's not going to be romantic. It's just going to serve your husband in that way. I don't even remember the question. I'm just talking now, but
good. That's good.
Yeah.
Good. But real quick, before we move on, we're going to take a quick break for a word from our sponsor. So we have some sponsors who sponsor our Marriage Monday podcast, and we'll be right back.
Hey everybody, I trust that you are thoroughly enjoying this podcast with my lovely wife and her guests. I just wanted to jump in and pause to thank our sponsor for sponsoring this podcast. We are so appreciative of our sponsor. This podcast today is being sponsored by Angela Taylor Carter and Berkshire Hathaway Realty. And if you partner with them, they will work to get you the home of your dreams. Have you ever thought about the fact that a union between a husband and a wife can grow when you are in the perfect space? A house that you make into a home? Well, let Angela Taylor Carter work with you to find that juicy, free-flowing space that will help your union to grow. Our buying specialists will meet every single need for both the man cave to the wonder-working power of the bathrooms. If you are ready to start that process that will lead to a lifetime of love and passion in your new home that you make a safe space, let Angela Taylor Carter work with you today. And so I want to thank Angela and Berkshire Hathaway. You can reach her. Just look at your screen right now. Angela's email and her phone number is right there. If you're ready to make the move into moving into a great space so that that passion and that love between you and your spouse can grow, I recommend Angela Taylor Carter. Thank you, Angela and Berkshire Hathaway, for sponsoring this podcast. Now, get back to the women's only session with my lovely wife, Lady Chalon. Baby, take it away.
All right. Thank you for that. So let's jump right back into this. This is one of those hot topics. We did a specific Monday just surrounding the issues and the topic of sex and marriage. And we have been getting, when I tell you, email after email, text after text messages requesting us to do this topic again. So be on the lookout for it. We're going to do it. We're going to bring in some professionals. We're going to bring in some sex therapists. So this is definitely one of those things that people are looking for help with. And so this is good. So this is good for our women out there who are married, who might be having some issues surrounding this area. So let's keep on talking about this. Things I knew then that I wish my husband knew. Let's talk about that.
So for me, I would say I'm somewhat like on the feeling the vibe what Melissa was saying in terms of the things early on and just communicating and, the fantasy of it. I write poetry, so I'm expecting this to be this big drawn out thing. And there are times when it's like that. And then there are times when he's just like, let's get it going, boo.
Going right.
And so what we had to do was transition my thinking to what he really wanted in the bedroom. I'm thinking that every time it has to be this grandiose experience.
Right.
And he's like, no, baby, look. You got on that t-shirt. You looking great, sexy for me right now. Let's come on and do so. Getting a little bit more aggressive instead of waiting for him to always, kind of peel the layers back and, that kind of thing. And once I started doing that a little bit more, it started really heating up because, my husband, we saved ourselves for marriage.
Yeah.
And, I know it was probably harder for him than me because I hadn't really had many experiences prior to that. So, I'm taking into this thinking that it was supposed to be one way when in reality, it really doesn't have to be that way.
Right.
Once you guys are married, you got kids, you're not going to always have like an hour to, what I'm saying? Do this, that, and the other thing.
Right.
Sometimes it's just got to be
quick, fast, and in a hurry.
Yes. And I started to find myself enjoying the quickie as well, because just the suspense of it all and like doing it real quick, between the kids are here and we're over there and, being quiet and stuff like that. And so, I think that, giving yourself just that room to explore, taking down all of the, unrealistic expectations for couples when you have so many other responsibilities, whether it's work, kids, just because it was a long day and you might be tired, if he wants to get down, then, I'm going to satisfy him because that's what I desire. I want to make him feel good in that way, and vice versa. Sometimes he's, getting in really late from work or something like that. I'm like, ooh, babe, I've been thinking about, you on this drive home. You ready? Kind of thing. So just allowing, giving ourselves some room to, either really take our time with it, or if we can't take our time with it, then
doing what we can do.
Yeah, doing what we can do and giving myself permission to do that. Because, Melissa, like you were saying, you have this romantical vision, and romance is what you create, not necessarily what we see on TV, just like marriage, So.
Yeah, because it's not always going to be time for you to set the atmosphere with the bubble bath and the rose petals on the floor and the candles lit and the music playing. Sometimes it just got to be, all right, I got 10 minutes. What can we do? Let's
gotta beat the clock.
Yeah, gotta beat the clock.
Yes. And like you said, Melissa, sometimes it's like you don't even, because of the challenges of days, right? You don't even realize as women, I don't know if men feel the same way, that time has passed.
Yeah, right.
Because in your mind, it was like, man, that euphoria feeling, I still have that.
Right.
There's been time that has passed. And he's like, listen.
Right.
So, and I think that is critical back to the communication piece. It's okay to say, I need this right now. You know what I mean? So.
Definitely. Yep, definitely.
I know for me personally, I have the higher drive than Cedric does. So I'm always the pushy one, always the touchy, feely one. And just like you said, Melissa, romance, I'm always visualizing once we get into the bedroom, it's going to be like this, but it's never what I envision. So I have to realize, or you got to make it what you want. So if Cedric wants something different, then, he don't want to be that, because Cedric is not the foreplay person. Me, I'm down for it.
Yeah.
But I have to realize, it's about both of us. So I can't be the greedy one all the time.
Right.
So, because if it was my way, I'll be greedy. I want it all. And he's not like that. So I have to begin to realize that we have to compromise, and we have to balance it out and kind of make it spicy at our own time. And that's what I began to do. You know what? And I had to talk to him, babe, what do you want me to do? And Cedric is that one, he likes oral. I don't. I'll be honest, I do not. So, but I realized, because growing up in the church, I was told that, that's not the right thing to do. But then as I got older, I was told that, the bedroom is undefiled. You're married. So if it's going to make your husband happy, if he don't get it at home, he'll get it somewhere. So, you have to begin to think, okay, and you have to begin to meet in the middle somewhere. So I had to learn to meet in the middle.
Right. That's good.
Or you bring up a good point about the church, and not necessarily the point of view I'm coming from is just the spiritual aspect of the intimacy. And that's one thing that I've also dealt with throughout time. I didn't feel any limitations. So that particular thing hadn't been my struggle, but just, if I could be honest, there have been times when I prayed just that intimacy piece, that God in that moment would bring us even closer together. Right. So that it would take the experience to another level. To some people that may seem strange, but I talk to God about everything. So, there have been times, particularly after having kids, and you don't feel your best, where I've prayed like, you know, I need your
Right.
help here. Can you bring us closer
Definitely.
together? Make this something different, you
Mhm.
know, for me so that I can, you know, block out the challenges of my body changes at that time, you
Mhm.
know, the self-esteem issues that come
Mhm.
after you have
Mhm.
kids, you know, at that time until I was built back up, you know,
Mhm.
to where we are now. So there was a time when I was praying, you know, for God to like enhance our intimacy in that moment to help me so that I could be better there to serve him
Right.
in that way.
Yeah,
Wow.
I remember distinctive moments of praying before having sex. Like, listen, Lord, this is something that you created and you called us to do as married people.
Mhm.
I'm not in the mood, but can you give me a heart to want to serve? And honestly, those have been some of the best times.
Right.
Um,
Mhm.
and then what reminds me, or what you said with the church, I grew up in a church where sex was shamed. And it was
Mhm.
like, you know, how did we all get here? Y'all was
Right.
having sex, you
Right.
know, so don't act like that. But
Mhm.
I think they were just very I guess like shy to talk about it. They weren't quick to talk about the realness of it. So I think I had to unpeel a lot of layers because to be a saved woman is to be pure. But also to be a saved woman is to be in that marriage bed with your husband. But
Right.
we
Exactly.
weren't built to that. Now,
Hello.
a
Yeah.
lot of churches are talking about it now, but years ago, not
Yeah.
even a decade ago, they weren't
They
so open
weren't.
to talk
Mhm.
about it.
Yes.
And
Mhm.
that's why a lot of teenagers were having sex and having babies because nobody was even talking
Talking about it.
about it at
Mhm.
all. So they just were having these feelings and not knowing what to do with them and what they were there for.
Exactly.
Another thing was I used to feel ashamed that my sex drive wasn't high. And I just used to think it was something wrong with me. I forget what the book I was reading, but it really opened my mind. It was saying that everybody has different cycles of needs, right? So it's
Mhm.
not just the man who always wants it, but that's just kind of like how people always portray it.
Right.
And some people have a more higher sensitivity, things will turn them on quicker. And it's just like everybody is literally different. But if we're communicating that with our husbands, like what we want in that moment, what we need in that moment, I think it really does enhance the moment, enhance and being
Exactly.
present. Because especially when there's so much on your mind, I literally have had sex and been thinking about dinner or like a chore, like
Mhm.
it, like my mind has been there. And so I've been challenging myself to be very present and in the moment, and that can amplify as well
Yeah.
this
Definitely.
scenario.
Yeah, definitely. I just want to bring up something, and I want to talk to Barb about this. How did you communicate, or was it something that you communicated with your husband, with Chris, about your insecurities, about the insecurities about yourself, how you were feeling about yourself? Was that something that you communicated? Was it something that he picked up on? And how did you guys deal with that? Because that's very important, because so many women have those hidden insecurities, and they don't know what to do with it. They don't know how to deal with it.
I think initially, and I keep going back to pregnancy because I feel like that's when my insecurities became known to me. I
Mm-hmm.
probably had them the whole time, but didn't realize it.
Okay.
And in that time, he would say, "You okay? You know, what's going on?" And I would slowly start to open up. And then
Mm-hmm.
after a while, it would bother me so bad that if I didn't want to walk around here uptight and toxic, I had to say something.
Okay.
And so I started to
Mm-hmm.
unleash those insecurities. I started to pray and I was deep in the Bible, you know, and I still read the word daily and stuff like that. But in terms of my relationship was shifting with God
Mm-hmm.
during that time. And I also realized I started connecting the dots of my childhood and what things from my childhood were manifesting itself
Mm-hmm.
in my
Mm-hmm.
marriage when there was no evidence of the
Wow.
thing that I was pulling in. And
Wow.
so in order to clearly identify that the thing wasn't the thing, I had
Right.
to talk about it. And
Gotcha.
it's the same way now. If something is on my mind, I just, even if we've talked about it like 20 times, and that's something I have to work on. Like if we talked about it already a couple of times, then you know you really can move on. Right? I'm a work in progress. But
Right.
I have to talk about it, because if not, it becomes so toxic to me that it almost renders you like immobile. I mean, you're moving, but you're not really, like, you're not thinking, you're not really feeling. So if I didn't want to end up as a statistic, in terms of our marriage, and I didn't want to pass on these things to my kids. I want them to be able to be as transparent as possible, in their relationships, not to a point of getting hurt, but to a point where they're free themselves, so that they don't get bound down by some of these things that hold us back as women. I have a son that holds us back as men, which Chris could really, more deal with, my son about. So I would say that it probably initially started with him, on the surface level. And then as I continued to do work, I just started to, vomit, for, lack of a better term, my feelings, just to get them out. And he gave me a secure space to do that. There was no judgment, there was no yelling, or anything like that. He really made me feel comfortable in being able to talk about the hard things, even though it's still hard to talk about hard things in a comforting space. But he made it that much more easy. And I don't know where that was birthed from him, to have that capability to do that. I think there are a lot more men that are like that than what we realize, because, the media, controls the narrative. Unfortunately, some of these shows of, housewives and this, that, and the other thing, they start to control the narrative. But I think there are probably a lot more men that are like that. I mean, look at the four of us on here. We all have understanding husbands, and we've been able to make our way through, some of the difficulties of marriage. So anyway, sorry to get long-winded, but it started with him, and then eventually
that's so important. Yeah, that's so important for for us to be able to, first of all, identify those insecurities within ourselves, and then being able to communicate that, like you said, so you wouldn't go down that road that would lead to, the end of the marriage, because you were not comfortable enough. And then also to have that, like you said, that secure and that comfortable space where you felt good enough to open up and share it. That's good. Yeah, that's good. So what would you tell another woman who might be viewing this podcast and she's not happy, but she don't know what to do? She don't know what to do. What would you tell that woman? And we've had a wide range of ages and numbers of years of marriage, but we still constantly get that, I'm not happy, but I don't know what I'm going to do.
I think about, so I have a little garden in my backyard, and I have lots of vegetables and herbs growing and flowers. And I think about how you're always working at it. There's not a season where you're just leaving it, whether you're doing a harvest, whether you're sowing seeds, or whether you're maintaining it. The moment that you leave it alone, things go out of order. So I think that if this woman is unhappy, there's some work to do. A marriage, firstly, it takes two people to work at it. It can't be just her working at it. But if we're both working, you will see progress. Even if there's lots of weeds to pull up, right? Or there's lots of infestation of things. If you work at it, something is going to change. But nothing changes if nothing changes. That would be the one thing. And I remember specifically in my marriage, a wise woman in her marriage, she told me the person that you married is not going to be the same person 10, 20 years down the line. You guys are both going to grow and mature if you're working and going in the right direction. Both my husband and I are believers in Christ, and we have a standard, and we live by that. And I think that also helps us in accountability. So it's not just our own opinions of what's right, but we work at it. It's a job. So like, if you're looking at your neighbor and their grass is greener, it's because they're watering it, right? Not just because it got better grass. It takes work.
That's good. That's good.
So we're sowing seeds of communication and trust, and we're pulling out weeds of baggage from our childhood and old relationships, right? And then we get to reap the harvest of fun times, good sex, just friendship, long-term companionship. It's work though, and they don't put that
It
on the
is.
TV. It's
It
a
is.
lot of
It
work
is.
and a
Marriage
lot of hiccups.
work. Yes, it is. And
Yeah.
like you said, it is hard work. And if you don't put in the work to make it work, then it's not. It's not going to work. Um, that's one of the things that I would say as well, Melissa, just to piggyback on what you said, that if you're not willing to put in the work, then it's not going, like you said, you have to look within yourself. What is not making you happy? Is it something within you? Is it something within the marriage? Is it something within your husband? But if you guys don't ever sit down and talk about it, going back to that communication piece, then nothing will ever be resolved. And you'll keep getting back to this place again and again and again. Um, yeah, you got to communicate. You got to be open and be willing to share with your spouse that, whether it's something within you that's not making you happy, or, it could be a number of things. It could be you're not happy with where you are in your career. What can we do to, advance you? What do you want to do? You have to be open and honest and communicate those things. Yeah.
I would say what you ladies have said already, a compilation, be willing. Like you said, be willing to tend to your garden, and your garden being your marriage. Be honest. You got to be honest with yourself about first of all, where you are in your marriage, the two of you, and what you're feeling. And you have to be receptive. You have to be willing to hear and engage in what your spouse is saying, and take that in, not from a place of defense, but from a place of understanding, so that your perspective can be appropriate for the moment that, you're in. And again, you have to be willing, right? Because it's hard, so be willing. And then you have to execute and do the work and be realistic about your timetable. It's not going to change tomorrow. So you have to give yourself the grace to go through the speed bumps, to, hit the roadblocks, to, have a moment of victory and you feel really good, but then maybe you get the wind comes and you get knocked back a peg, as long as you guys are still doing the work together and honestly want to do it together, then I think that, that would be my advice. So it would be willing, be honest, be receptive, be open, be willing, and do the work.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yes. All right. Well, guys, I am so excited. Or did you have anything to add?
I would just say, when the storm comes, like piggyback on what Barb said, because I really love that. When the storm comes, put God first in everything. Pray with it. If you and that person can get together and come to a mutual understanding and pray together and put God first, it will work itself out. Because what God has put together, can nothing put asunder. That's the way I look at it. So if you're meant to be, it will be.
That's right. That's right. That is awesome. Well, ladies, I am so thankful that you all joined us on this podcast tonight. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. We're open to answering any questions that you might have. Melissa, Barb, Aura, thank you so much for taking your time out this evening to join me as we as we try to reach our goal and saving as many marriages as we can. I really do appreciate you all. So we're going to end for tonight. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. I love you all. And I hope you guys have a great evening.
Before we hang up, I just want to say thank you for the platform. Thank you for, considering me to participate. Marriage and sowing into the lives of other people is not something to be taken lightly. And so the fact that and I get emotional, sorry, but the fact that you invited me, invited us, I think is very honorable and says a lot. And I'm appreciative of the opportunity. And, I'm grateful to God that He is giving us this space. And hopefully He has spoken through each one one of us in some way that will have impact and influence in a positive way on someone else that will help keep the glue of their marriage together. So thank you for allowing me to be a part of this important movement.
Awesome. Thank you. You're welcome. Well, if there's nothing else, ladies, we're going to end for tonight, and I look forward to us doing this again. I think it's needed, and so yeah, we'll be doing this again. So you guys have a great evening.
Awesome. You too. Thank you. Thanks, ladies. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, Cora. All right.
Good night.
Good night.